Hello, welcome back to day 2 of the Adrenal Fatigue Detox Challenge. I am so glad that you are back with me again for more detoxing. Detoxing, right? No skinny teas, no green drinks unless you want to in this detox. But you might want to after I take away your other favorite drink today. Sorry in advance. If you haven't watched the first 2 videos in the challenge, the prep video and then yesterday's on food fixation and food, I would really encourage you to go back and take a look. I think that you have on some level an understanding that what you are and are not eating and how you feel about that is contributing to your adrenal fatigue symptoms, but sometimes we need a little reminder. So go back and check out that video. Today we are going to get much more specific and talk about what you are drinking that is contributing to your adrenal fatigue. And it is going to hurt a little bit because I am willing to bet that caffeine is your saving grace and the only reason you feel like you can even function sometimes or all the time. I know that's how I certainly felt. And I looked forward to coffee like it was my lifesaver every single morning. So I understand completely how it feels when someone says that caffeine might be actually making you sicker than you think. And I'm sorry. And I keep wincing because I know this is a tough one, but bear with me. It's all for the greater good. I don't know exactly why you're doing this challenge or what brought you here, but if you are anything like how I felt a few years ago or my clients that I work with one-on-one, I bet that it's because you know something is wrong in your body and you're trying to figure out what it is. Likely you have explored the possibility of having hormone imbalances with your doctor, or you've tried to get to the root cause of your digestive problems with your doctor, or maybe you're even afraid to go to the doctor because you're afraid of what you're going to find out and you're not getting any answers. So you're looking elsewhere to figure out what is going on that is causing all kinds of symptoms to pile on top of each other. And it seems like it's just getting worse instead of better. I totally get it. And that's why you're here. That's why we're all here. So let's get started. I am going to remind you, before we get into today's lesson, that I have been exactly where you are. I've had symptoms of hypothyroid, a thyroid cancer scare, which I talked about a little bit yesterday. I've had very substantial weight gain that I couldn't get to budge for the life of myself, and a total dependence on caffeine. I was totally miserable. I had no idea how my body worked. I just knew that I felt really old and frumpy, and I wasn't really that old. Might have been frumpy, but I wasn't really that old yet. And I couldn't understand why all of these symptoms were piling on top of each other. And now I am happy to report that most of those struggles have resolved themselves. I've learned how to feed myself much more nutrient-dense food. I am actively, day by day, trying to reframe my food fixation and chill the hell out about what I do eat. That's a work in progress. And my adrenal fatigue symptoms have disappeared. I don't feel like I have any of those anymore. Big part of that has been because I quit drinking caffeinated coffee. And the reason that I remind you about all of this and that I have been there is because it's caffeine detox day, and I want you to remember why you wanted to come into this challenge in the first place. So let's take it back for just a second and discuss what the actual mechanics of adrenal fatigue is. Don't want to get too technical on this because I don't want to lose anybody, but ultimately, chronic stress response in our body involves our adrenal glands. Our adrenal pumps out cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and adrenaline, among other things, to deal with stressors, environmental stressors, mental stressors, dietary stressors. It doesn't matter. Our body can't differentiate between any of those, regardless of if it's financial stress or being stuck in traffic or spiking your blood sugar out of control. Our body responds the same way, which is to say that our tiny little adrenal glands have to pump out a lot of these hormones to deal with the stressors. Evolutionarily speaking, this was not a huge issue because we had long periods of rest. It wasn't chronic stress all the time. It was hunting, gathering, in my mind, there was like running away from a woolly mammoth followed by a long nap in a cave. That's what I'm picturing. But regardless of what you're picturing, you can understand that it wasn't chronic all the time, like beating down on your very body. But our lifestyle today is truly like that. It starts early in the morning with a beep of an alarm. For a lot of people, you are in a rush to get out the door, to get to your job on time, fighting traffic, inundated with technology and body comparison and checking in on social media. And even if those things are fun, to some extent, it is a stress. If you feel like you are comparing yourself to somebody, that's a stress. That's mentally making your body feel stressed, and your poor adrenal glands are cranking out hormones in response to it. And after a time, they can't keep up. Okay, so think about that. Stressful commutes, a job that you hate, fighting with your spouse, fighting with a family member, a boss that you don't like. There's so many things just day to day that really, really stress out our bodies. And in addition to that, spiking your blood sugar is also a huge physical stress that you probably don't even know your body is fighting behind the scenes. So what I mean by that is that when you eat too many refined carbohydrates or sugar in a meal, it will ultimately spike your blood sugar really high. Even if you're not diabetic, even if you don't have any problems in your metabolism, it still is going to really spike your blood sugar. You're getting a lot of glucose really fast into the bloodstream. And how our body responds to that is to efficiently lower that blood sugar by pumping out hormones, and then we crash. And that's the crash that you feel, 20 minutes to an hour after a heavy meal, when you feel like you're dying and you need like some sugar or something to pump you back up. That's because you've now crashed. Your body did a really good job of bringing that blood sugar down, and now you crashed. What you don't probably realize is that to combat that crash, your adrenal glands kick in and pump out a flood of cortisol. Because in addition to other things that cortisol does, it brings our blood sugar back up. So chronically spiking and crashing your blood sugar, which if you're eating a standard American diet of a lot of processed foods, you're doing multiple times a day, is really taxing to your adrenal glands. On top of your financial worries and maybe even your good stress. Maybe it's exercise that's another stress, a chronic stressor in your life, and that's something you enjoy, or it's your job. I happen to have a business that I love, but I know that it stresses me out in a good way, but it's stress nonetheless. Building a new house, moving, any type of like a chronic stress like that, whether it's good or bad, is going to impact your hormones. Compounded, like I said, with blood sugar crashes, you really, really can understand how our poor adrenal glands are tired as hell, and we end up with some really funky hormone problems as a result. Because there's no such thing as just one hormone in your body being impacted. They all work together like a symphony, and if one thing is totally whacked, then it's going to impact everything else. And I'm trying to keep this not technical, so hope that I'm doing a good job of explaining it. All of this to say that bad PMS, infertility, PCOS, there's depression, anxiety, digestive issues, insomnia, so many different symptoms of adrenal fatigue that we need to realize could be having the same root cause, which is adrenal fatigue, right? I'm bringing this all back in. I'm giving you all the information so you remember why we're doing this. But let's bring it back around to caffeine. Caffeine is known as liquid anxiety for a reason. It is a drug. Don't kid yourself. It's a socially acceptable drug, but it's a drug nonetheless. And it impacts your adrenal health considerably for two reasons. First of all, actually metabolizing caffeine and taking that into your body is stressful on your adrenals. It causes a response. So that's on a physical level, you are depleting your adrenal function by actually taking in the caffeine. But even perhaps more importantly, caffeine serves as a crutch, or it kind of masks the symptoms of the fatigue that you might be experiencing, so you don't actually realize how bad your body is suffering because you're constantly pumping caffeine into your bloodstream and masking the problem. So we detox from caffeine in this challenge and in any time that you are healing from an adrenal insufficiency issue. And if you're here, I bet you are, caffeine detox needs to happen. It needs to happen so that your poor adrenal glands can start to heal themselves. And it also needs to happen so that you can get a baseline understanding of what your fatigue level is. And you can't do that if you are taking in caffeine all day long. So, my friends, day 2, and we are detoxing caffeine. Now, in your email today, you got some of my favorite coffee substitutes. If coffee is not your caffeine of choice, then you might have an even easier time in just swapping out some water, I guess, for soda. If soda is usually what you're reaching for, maybe a sparkling water instead. But if coffee is your thing, then try decaf, okay? I do give some other strategies and some more creative stuff, but just get some decaf going and deal with it. That's what I do. That's what I've done, and many others before you have as well. If this is going to cause some really funky withdrawal symptoms for you, and it might, then we have some strategies for that as well. I would recommend taking a nap if possible. Drink way more water, take a nap is option number 1. If in addition to that you're still shaking your head thinking that's not going to cut it, then I would suggest some adaptogens. Adaptogenic herbs can be really helpful with this issue, like headaches in particular. Tulsi tea is a tea that is full of adaptogens and tastes delicious and is a really good coffee alternative as well. So I recommend that. Or just grin and bear it, I guess. I don't know what else to say. This is one of those hard things that you just need to do, but it ultimately is going to be so worth it. And this is your last day of tough love in the challenge. The rest of the challenge is going to be much less sacrificial and I think much more enjoyable. If this is tough for you, keep going, and you are going to find out exactly what I mean in tomorrow's video. Okay? For now, get your little booty into the Facebook group and let us know what your caffeine is of choice and what you're going to swap it out with instead, so we can all get some good ideas and work together. Okay, see you tomorrow.